If this new report is true, the Philadelphia Flyers are officially the pettiest team in the entire NHL. Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman were discussing the trade deadline deals on their 32 Thoughts podcast when talk inevitably turned to the Philadelphia Flyers, and in particular the big trade that they made with the Colorado Avalanche, sending Sean Walker to Colorado in exchange for a first-round pick and Ryan Johansen. Johansen was then immediately waived, which raised a lot of eyebrows, because even though he's had a less productive season, he's still a legitimate top-9 winger who could have some use to a team like Philadelphia that's in the thick of a playoff race. But on the pod, Friedman seemed to reveal that the reason that they decided to waive Johansen was due less to his injury and performance than it was his relationships, notably Johansen's relationship with head coach John Tortorella. For those not in the know, Tortorella was head coach in Columbus while Johansen was a Blue Jacket, and the ending of their relationship there was quite contentious. Johansen was healthy scratch before he was eventually traded, and so you would imagine that the two are not likely on speaking terms. And Friedman said when it initially happened, he thought that there was no chance Johansen was going to play in Philadelphia. He was going to get waived and sent down to AHL Lehigh Valley, but apparently there was some attempt by Johansen to mend the fences, and the Flyers were open to that, but apparently he's battling some injury, so he's not going to be playing for right now, and that's why he was waived. Now, it's interesting that Friedman said that the Flyers were amenable to mending fences, not Tortorella, because that's who Johansen has the complicated relationship with. But regardless whether or not the end result of him being waived was because he was injured or just because Tortorella didn't really want to have him on the team, the question remains why even introduce this element of chaos to the team. So that's like a mild amount of pettiness, but apparently, according to Friedman, it gets even Tom pettier. He went on to say that, quote, there are some hard feelings there just in general because Johansen is represented by Kurt Overhart, who represents Cutter Gauthier. So there's some hard feelings there, and people wonder how much all this plays into that, and we'll see what happens with goes on with Johansen in Philly. Basically intimating that the fact that Johansen is represented by the same agent who represents Cutter Gauthier could have been the reason why the Flyers weren't willing to play ball with Johansen. For those who don't remember, Gauthier is the one who basically demanded a trade out of Philly, saying that he would never play for that team, and had been apparently saying it for years before Philadelphia finally traded him this year. And my understanding was that Gauthier's desire not to play in Philadelphia didn't have so much to do with like a personal animus with anybody in the front office or Tortorella, but more that he just like grew up not a fan of the Philadelphia Flyers, so didn't want to be a part of that organization. Which, like, I get, it kind of sucks from the Flyers' perspective to draft this kid who tells you they ultimately just never will play for you. But at the same time, he's an 18-year-old kid, and you did right by him by not leaking this before you just went out and traded him to a team that he would play for. But to then trade for a guy and then waive him because he is represented by the same agent that represented Gauthier is just like a next level of petty that I can't even believe is in the NHL. Like, this is just circus town stuff. If you don't want to deal with this agent or his clients anymore, then just don't trade for Ryan Johansen. That's entirely an option that was available to Philadelphia, and just saying to Colorado, look, if you want to unload him, bring in a third team and we'll make the trade happen that way, or you guys figure that out, but we're not going to take Johansen. And even though Friedman didn't say this, is just me speculating, it's hard not to imagine that this wasn't in some way motivated by Tortorella, who had previously said he didn't know Cutter Gauthier from a hole in the wall, and just if he didn't want to be here, they didn't want him here. I feel like this is the sort of move that Torts would do just to get back at a player and an agent who have wronged him in the past. And all of this coming right after Tortorella just got suspended and fined for refusing to leave the bench after getting thrown out of a game. Like, it is just an absolute clown show behind the bench in Philadelphia. And it's unfortunately seeping into the front office. I know a lot of people are high on Philadelphia's prospect pool and their direction. They're clearly overperforming what most people expected this year. But with stuff like this, antics like this going on, it's hard to take the Flyers seriously as an organization.
Excuse me, I'd like to return this jacket.
Certainly. May I ask why?
For spite.
Spite?
That's right. I don't care for the salesman that sold it to me.
I don't think you can return an item for spite.
What do you mean?